What's what is the link to your Facebook page?
It's Care for International Workers. You can
Care
find
Care for
Care for
International
International Workers. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Care for International Workers. So I
Okay.
could,
Okay, so hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this information session. So the Government of Canada's Temporary Foreign Worker Program has provided 2.18 million to Kairos, Canada, to support and help empower temporary foreign workers, primarily in the agricultural sector during the COVID-19 pandemic and concluding on March 2022. Kairos used the Government of Canada funding to expand their support and services to temporary foreign agricultural workers by partnering with organizations in the Atlantic provinces and in Ontario. In Ontario, for example, Kairos partnered with Care for International Workers that is sponsored by Windsor Essex Bilingual Legal Clinic to develop this project. CARE is participating with 4 of these 8 partners to develop this project. Today, a supporting legal agency, the Grace Bruce Community Legal Clinic, is going to provide you with information about COVID-19 income support measures and other federal benefits for temporary foreign workers. Our speaker is Stephanie Ray. She is a staff lawyer at the Grace Bruce Community Legal Clinic. Her work includes legal services in the areas of housing, social assistance, government pensions, employment, and indigenous issues. She is also active in community development and outreach activities in her region that focus on educating and empowering vulnerable communities. So thank you so much for being here, ladies and gentlemen. Please give me a very good welcome to Stephanie Wright. Hi, Stephanie. So where is Stephanie? I was waiting for Stephanie. Stephanie was here, but I don't know what happened with Stephanie. I'm not going to do the introduction again. So just, we are waiting for Stephanie. I don't know what happened with Stephanie. She was here. Oh, it's connecting again. It's
it's the internet connection. Maybe it doesn't help her.
It's maybe. So
Yeah.
I'm going to give Stephanie is here. So yeah, Stephanie, I'm going to give you access to a co-host so you can share your slides. Okay, so you can share the slides now if you want.
Can you hear me, Francie?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I've been having a lot of technical difficulties.
We can't hear you no anymore. No, I think you are asking. No, we cannot hear you.
I think it's the internet. Maybe if it's, I think it's the internet line. That happens to me all the time. So the people cannot hear you because your internet doesn't have, you know. So this is what happened.
She also, she's not connected.
Oh, poor.
We're going to see.
Estresada.
Yeah.
Francie, I
Yes.
think Connie is trying to get in. She's waiting to be admitted to join. It says waiting for host to admit you
Really?
in. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear
It's
me?
there. Yeah.
Yes.
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 Can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I am so sorry. I'm not sure whether it's my internet connection up here, no one sound, or what's going on. But my apologies. I have not heard any of the introductions, but I gather that you're ready for me to start.
Yeah, I did.
I will just I will just work on sharing my screen here, and I am so sorry to everybody that I've that it's taken me a while to get logged on properly.
That's okay.
Can everybody see a page that says land acknowledgement at the moment?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna just I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty seeing all of my commands here. I know that this is not ideal because you're seeing maybe more of my screen than you need to, but I think I'll just stick with this if that's okay with everybody. Just because of the number of technical problems we've had, I don't want to keep you waiting.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay, so are we good for me to get started here, Francie?
Yeah, yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for your patience, everyone. I've been trying to get logged in since well before 2. So I appreciate everybody's patience with waiting for my technology to cooperate. My name, as I'm sure Francie has mentioned, is Stephanie Reed, and I'm a staff lawyer here at the Grey Bruce Community Legal Clinic in beautiful Owen Sound, Ontario. And I'm here to speak with you today to discuss some income support measures through the federal government for temporary foreign workers. And these include some benefits that are specifically related to COVID-19 supports, as well as other more general federal benefits. So I would like to start with a land acknowledgement today. My legal clinic is situated in Owen Sound, and that's where I'm presenting today. And so I want to acknowledge that the Grey Bruce Community Legal Clinic is situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people, which include the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations, which are collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. So oral history of the Anishinaabe dates the arrival of these people to this land to time immemorial. Grey and Bruce counties, including Owen Sound, constitute much of the original territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which was surrendered in a series of poorly honored treaties from 1836 to 1861. The Saugeen Ojibwe Nation is currently made up of the Saugeen First Nation and the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation, strong and resilient communities in Bruce County. Today, Grey and Bruce counties are also home to many Indigenous peoples, including Métis people from across Turtle Island. It is also home to Black peoples and other peoples of color, some of whom were brought here as slaves and others as indentured labor. So we'd like to acknowledge that systemic racism and the legacy of colonialism continue to exist in Canada. We are dedicated to working together to dismantle these oppressions. And we are grateful to Indigenous peoples for allowing us to be part of this territory, and we welcome the opportunity to work with them towards reconciliation and social justice for all, and we are all treaty members. So thank you for listening and participating in the land acknowledgement. And I do want to just move forward with a quick disclaimer before I get started on the subject matter of today's presentation. So I just want to clarify that the content of this webinar constitutes legal information only, so it's not a substitute for legal advice. And the information provided in this webinar is accurate to the date of March 3rd, 2022, so a week ago is when it was last finalized. Please note that the federal programs described in this presentation may be changed and eligibility criteria may be revised over time, and particularly with the benefits around COVID-19 supports, those are tending to be revised and changed on a fairly short turnaround time. So for advice regarding any specific situation, we would urge you to seek a legal consultation. So I want to talk about 3 broad categories of federal income support during COVID-19. The first of these that I'm going to discuss today is employment insurance. The second one is the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit and other related COVID-19 specific benefits. And then I'm going to conclude today by speaking about the Canada Pension Plan and the various benefits that are available through that plan for temporary foreign workers. So as I said, I'm going to start with employment insurance benefits. And Francie, I'm not sure if you have a preference for today's webinar as to whether how people should ask questions, whether you'd like me to stop at the end of each segment to take questions, or if you'd like me just to wait till the finish.
So because we have subtopics in the main topic, probably just we can stop at the end of each main topic just to know if somebody has questions.
Absolutely.
fine.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll make time for that as I go. And then of course we can do more general question and answer at the end as well. Okay, so the types of employment insurance benefits that I'm going to discuss today are EI sickness benefits and EI regular benefits. As some of you may know, or many of you may know, temporary foreign workers in Canada make payments into the federal employment insurance program. So deductions are taken from each paycheck and are sent by the employer to the federal government. And so because temporary foreign workers pay into employment insurance really is insurance. It's run by the federal government, but like any other insurance, because they pay into it, they can be eligible to receive benefits under employment insurance as long as they meet the other eligibility criteria. So the fact that they're temporary foreign workers on its own will not exclude eligibility. So EI regular benefits provide income for workers when employment is lost through no fault of the worker. EI sickness benefits, on the other hand, provide some income when the worker is temporarily unable to work due to sickness. So starting with EI regular benefits, there is a list of eligibility criteria that each worker must meet in order to qualify for EI regular benefits. In order to qualify, a worker needs to demonstrate the following things. So first of all, that they were employed in insurable employment. So they were working in a job where they were making those payments to EI. The second eligibility criterion is that they lost their job through no fault of their own. And that means that they were not fired for misconduct and that they did not quit. They also have to show that they've been without work and without pay for at least 7 consecutive days in the last 52 weeks, and that they have worked for the required number of insurable employment hours in the 52 weeks prior to claiming EI, or that they've worked the required number of hours since the start of their last EI claim, whichever of those periods is shorter. So for a worker who had received employment insurance within the last 6 months, they would need to show that they had worked the required number of eligible hours since the start of that last claim. They also have to show that they're ready, willing, and capable of working each day for which they receive employment insurance benefits, and that they're actively looking for work. So on this slide, you'll see that I underlined and put an asterisk beside the criterion of being ready, willing, and capable to work each day. So this, if a temporary foreign worker meets the other eligibility criteria here, this is the one area where they can sometimes run into a problem. Because for some temporary foreign workers, well, many temporary foreign workers, if they have a closed work permit that only permits them to work for one employer within Canada, if they lose a job or lose work with the employer for whom they have a work permit, this might mean that they're considered not capable of working because they are not actually legally allowed to work for any other employer. So if you know someone who's in this situation, they really should be seeking some legal assistance for how to navigate that piece of their EI application. And in some cases, it may mean that that worker is not eligible for employment insurance. Another criterion I do want to just focus in on for a moment is losing a job through no fault of their own. And again, this is the type of situation I'm going to talk about is one where the worker would really want to get some legal advice. But there are times where a worker has to quit a job because of abuse or exploitation within the job. And in that type of scenario, it would be really worthwhile for that worker to get some legal advice about how to ensure that EI understands that even though they quit their job, that they had really no viable option but to quit. Because if it looks on the surface, just like this was a worker who had a job and quit, Service Canada might say, well, you lost this work through your own fault, and therefore you're not eligible, and they may require some assistance in providing evidence to show that they really had no choice because of the work conditions. So that's kind of the broad outline of EI regular benefits eligibility. One thing that is becoming less relevant in Ontario anyway, as we move forward through this COVID-19 pandemic and government policies are changing, is the situation where a worker loses a job due to COVID-19 vaccination status. This was a question that was on a lot of people's minds when mandatory workplace vaccination policies were first starting to become more common within the various provinces in Canada. And what the position that the government has taken around EI eligibility and losing a job due to COVID-19 vaccination status is that in most cases, if a worker either is fired or terminated or quits their job because they don't want to get vaccinated, usually they would not be eligible for EI benefits under those circumstances. There are a few things that Service Canada would explore in making that decision. They would want to ensure that the employer clearly communicated that there was going to be a mandatory COVID-19 vaccination policy to all their workers, that they clearly communicated that job loss could occur as a result of not complying with the policy. They also would have to show that the policy was reasonable within the workplace context, that was a reasonable measure for the employer to take. And also, they would look at whether or not the worker had a valid reason for not complying with the policy, and whether or not the employer looked at giving an exemption. So, if you're working with a worker who has lost their job because of a COVID-19 vaccination policy, that worker should be aware that that they are at risk of losing their job if they can't, or sorry, are at risk of not being eligible for EI if they can't show that they pass these various queries. So I do want to also talk about EI sickness benefits. EI sickness benefits have different eligibility criteria from EI regular benefits, because EI sickness benefits do not have that requirement that you be ready, willing, and capable of working, because the whole point of EI sickness benefits is that you have a job, but that you are currently not able to work because of a health condition. So EI sickness benefits are more likely to be available for temporary foreign workers because their work type will not affect them. Oh, thanks. I had a bit of feedback there, but whatever was causing it seems to have been muted, so that's great. So if a worker is in Canada and they have a valid work permit and they meet the other conditions of eligibility, then that temporary foreign worker would be entitled to receive EI sickness benefits. So EI sickness benefits are available for up to 15 weeks at 55% of the worker's regular pay, up to a maximum of $638 a week. And that is for workers who are temporarily unable to work because of illness, injury, or other medical reasons, and that includes quarantine requirements. To be eligible, the worker has to show that their income has been reduced by at least 40% for at least 1 week. And they must remain ready and willing to work other than the medical reason throughout the life of their claim. So the number of qualifying hours that are required is currently set at 420 hours of qualifying work in order to receive EI sickness benefits, and that will remain in effect until at least September 24th, 2022. And again, that's within the last 52 weeks or since the last EI claim, whichever is shorter. One additional requirement for EI sickness benefits that can sometimes be a challenge for certain temporary foreign workers is that there is a medical form that's part of the application that has to be completed by a healthcare provider. So that can sometimes be a barrier if the worker doesn't have access to a healthcare provider. But that is one mandatory component of that application. So because we're talking about EI benefits within the context of COVID-19, there are a couple of additional details to talk about. So one thing to note is that EI sickness benefits are not available for temporary foreign workers during that initial mandatory quarantine period that is required upon arrival to Canada. And the reason that it's not available during that time is because employers are actually required to pay their workers' wages during that initial quarantine period. After the initial mandatory quarantine, the worker could be eligible for EI sickness benefits if they are too ill to work because of COVID-19, or they've been ordered to quarantine because of exposure to COVID-19 or symptoms, or any other medical reason that has nothing to do with COVID. When I get a little further along in the presentation, I do have a slide where I'm going to be comparing kind of the various pros and cons of EI benefits versus some of the COVID specific benefits, but before I move on to discussing the COVID specific benefits, I'm wondering if anybody has any questions on the presentation so far. And I guess maybe just raise your hand if you have a question. I'm not sure if I can see everybody. Oh. So I see Fanny.
Okay. Yes. Okay. What I don't see in the presentation here is parental benefits. So workers, is it going to be covered in this presentation?
That's a great question. And no, I was not going to cover parental benefits in this presentation. You're right that there are some other types of EI benefits that we're not covering today. They are available and they may be available to temporary foreign workers, but it's not part of today's presentation.
Okay, yes,
yeah.
It will be nice to because I've done parental benefits for migrant workers for the last, I can say 16 years. Mm-hmm. And even though they, I know EI benefits because they leave the country, they cannot collect, but parental benefits they can collect. And so it will be nice to have probably another presentation about EI. So parental benefit, because they are entitled to that type of benefits. And there is a special unit in Sudbury. It's called the International Office. That the claims will go to that office. So I just
That's great. That's great to know. I didn't know about that office in Sudbury, and I appreciate you adding that in, Fanny. I think you're right that it would have been good to cover that, and I'm sorry that we didn't include it today.
okay.
Just looking through, I can't see everybody at once, so I think that was the only
No.
question.
There are no more questions.
Okay, and you're welcome to ask more questions at the end as well. Okay, so I'm moving on now just to discuss some of these federal benefits that are in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So these are all the benefits that did not exist prior to this pandemic that we're living through, and that have been put into place. And as I mentioned at the start of this presentation, these benefits have evolved over time, and I just noticed that I have a typo on this slide because it was an old version where we had, you know, the CERB and the CRB, and as many of you know, those original programs have all been completed, and now the federal government has introduced these new COVID-19 specific federal benefits. So today I'm going to be discussing the current benefit regimes that exist, the programs that exist. So one is the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit. I'm going to speak about the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit and also the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit. And these are the three of the current federal programs that would be relevant for temporary foreign workers that are now in effect. So we'll start with the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit and look at whether or not a person would be eligible. So this benefit, the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit, it has quite strict eligibility criteria, and it really applies in quite narrow circumstances. It applies only to approved regional lockdowns that would have interfered with the worker's ability to work. So in order to apply, the first thing the worker would need to do is determine whether it was a regional lockdown that prevented them from working. If the answer to that question is no, it was some other factor that prevented them from working, then this would not be the benefit for them. If it was a regional lockdown, they'd have to make sure that it was one of the approved regional lockdowns under this program. So a temporary foreign worker would be eligible for this benefit if they meet the other eligibility criteria, but they would have to show that they had sufficient earnings in Canada and that they're filing Canadian tax returns. So those are part of the eligibility criteria for this benefit. Under this program, eligible workers can receive $300 a week. And this program is available from October 24th, 2021 up until just May 7th of this year of 2022. I don't know whether it will be extended, but that's the current period of eligibility. I haven't gone into a lot of detail around the financial eligibility criteria for this benefit because it is so narrow and it is a little more technical than some of the other benefits. But if a worker thinks that they might be eligible for it, I would encourage them to look at the Government of Canada webpage that sets out step by step how they would determine their eligibility. Like I said, this benefit's quite narrow in scope, and so I don't think it would be one that you would see very much of, and especially going forward, if, as we hope, we're hoping that we'll have fewer lockdowns in the future. So the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit is a benefit that a temporary foreign worker is more likely to be eligible for. And so this is a benefit that's designed for workers who have been unable to work for 50% or more of their scheduled work week because they've contracted COVID-19, have been advised to self-isolate because of COVID-19, or have an underlying health condition that makes them more vulnerable to a COVID-19 infection. And temporary foreign workers are eligible for this benefit as long as they meet the other eligibility criteria. To receive the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit, the workers must be in Canada and they must have a valid work permit. It does entitle workers to $500 a week. Taxes are withheld. So the worker would see $450 a week, and they can get it for up to 6 weeks, which is a change. It was originally just 4 weeks. It's now been extended to 6 weeks. However, workers can only apply for 1 week at a time. So they apply for a week, get $450, and then if there are conditions preventing them from working, continue on into at least 50% of another scheduled work week, then they can apply again. This benefit also is from September 27th of 2020 to May 7th of 2022. So again, it's not around for much longer unless the federal government extends it. And I don't know if anyone within this webinar has any inside knowledge as to whether that's likely to be extended. I personally don't. So all I know is that it's going just till May 7th, and we don't know whether it will extend after that. I am going to talk a little bit about, some of the pros and cons of the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit versus EI sick benefits. And so I am going to get to that in a little bit and within this presentation, because it is a worker cannot receive both lines of benefits at the same time. So for a worker who's unable to work because of COVID-19, they may potentially be eligible for either EI sickness benefits or Canada Recovery Sickness Benefits. And so as a helper or a support person, you may be in the position of helping them navigate that. So I will talk about that in a little more detail shortly. But first, I want to talk about the third federal benefit that I listed at the start of this, which is the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit. So this benefit is, again, for those who cannot work up to, or not up to, at least 50% of their work week. So they are working 50% or less of their scheduled work week, because they have to care for a family member who is under 12 years old, or a family member who is over 12 but requires supervision. And that family member must require care either because they have COVID-19, have been advised to stay at home by someone in a position of authority because of COVID-19, or are again at high risk from a COVID-19 infection due to an underlying health condition. So this obviously would apply to parents of children under 12, or anybody that has a family member that requires supervision for whatever health condition that they have. Again, this benefit entitles workers to $500 a week. Again, taxes are deducted at source, so they would receive $450 a week. And it's available for up to 44 weeks, but they have to apply again just 1 week at a time. So temporary foreign workers could be eligible for this benefit if they meet the other eligibility criteria. But again, it's only available until May 7th of 2022. So as I had mentioned earlier, a worker can only receive benefits under one of these programs that I've described up till now at a time. So again, what I'm saying does not apply to CPP, but it applies to EI and the federal COVID-19 related benefits. So each worker has to think about their own personal circumstances to decide which programs they might be eligible for, and if they're eligible for more than one, which one makes the most sense or is the best fit for their current situation. And I would really encourage workers to seek legal advice or other advice when they're making this kind of decision, when they are deciding how to navigate these different programs. So a really common decision that a worker would need to make is between EI sickness benefits and the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefits. Most of these other programs are quite specific in terms of what they apply for, so you'd be less likely to qualify for one or more. But quite often, you'll have a worker who could potentially apply for either EI sickness or the CRSB. They cannot receive both simultaneously, so they have to choose one. So when we look at these two benefits, one thing to consider is the amount of money that they would be eligible for. EI sickness benefits are available at a rate of 55% of the worker's earnings, and that's currently capped at $638 a week. The Canada Recovery Sickness Benefits are only $500 a week. But it's a flat amount of $500 a week. It is not prorated based on the worker's normal income. So for some workers, they would get more money under EI sickness benefits, and others might get more money under the CRSB. So that's one thing to consider. One additional barrier to getting EI sickness benefits is the insurable hours requirement that I spoke about earlier, that right now is currently set at 420 hours. CRSB has no insurable hours requirement. So for a worker that's newer to Canada, that hasn't been working in Canada for very long, they might only be eligible to apply for the CRSB. And then another factor to consider is the duration of the benefits. Where a worker anticipates that they will only be off work for a short period of time, this may be less of a consideration, but where there may be really prolonged absences from work, the worker should consider the fact that EI sickness benefits are available for up to 15 weeks, potentially. That does partly depend on their contributions and their EI history, whereas the CRSB is available for 6 weeks. And as long as you meet the other eligibility criteria, you will continue to be eligible for 6 weeks. But after 6 weeks, you've used up your funds under that program. So these are some of the pros and cons that a worker would need to consider when they're making that decision between those two programs. Okay, so I'm going to move on shortly to speaking about Canada Pension Plan, which is kind of a different type of program from the ones that we've discussed up till now. But before we move on, does anyone have any questions about what we've discussed so far? And again, I'll just ask you to raise your hand, and you have to bear with me here while I just scroll through. Oh, okay, I see. So Fanny has her hand raised.
Okay, we were talking about the CRSB.
Mm-hmm.
So we have workers that applied last year or at the beginning or last year. What they didn't know is that they were collecting, they were getting paid 30 hours a week. And some of the workers, some people file applications for CRSB. And right now, some workers they were paying $900 for those 2 weeks. And right now, some workers owe the government that money. So if anyone is going to file an application for this type of benefit, we have to ask the worker, yes, they are entitled, but we have to know if they are getting paid, because if they are getting paid those 2 weeks when they are in quarantine, they will not be, they can't collect. And like I said, workers right now owe $1,800 to the government because they were not entitled to that benefit.
Yeah, that's a great point that you're raising. And certainly we have seen in my practice here, we've seen many individuals from, you know, with various immigration status, including Canadian citizens, who applied in error for those benefits and received them, and then now have a debt to the federal government. It is possible to advocate for those debts to be collected on like a payment plan that is affordable for the workers. That is something that can be done. It requires a certain amount of advocacy to get into those kinds of arrangements, but it is really a real problem. And I think that's a really great point, again, Fanny, to raise that, you know, when I say that temporary foreign workers may be eligible, I am always qualifying it with that they must meet the other eligibility criteria, and that includes not being paid, you know, that they have lost 50% or more of their scheduled work week and pay. Does anyone else have any questions at this time? I'm just scrolling through so I can see. I don't see any other hands up.
There are no more hands on.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to speak now about the Canada Pension Plan. And like I said, Canada Pension Plan benefits are really a different kind of benefits than the ones we've been discussing up until now. Employment insurance is really a form of insurance that's run by the government, and the pandemic benefits are really, you know, unprecedented in terms of, you know, this type of like broad sweeping benefits being offered nationally, at least in my years of experience. Canada Pension Plan is a different type of program. And as you can tell from the name, it's a pension plan. So it's run by the government, but there are aspects of it that are similar to private pension plans, because that's what it's really modeled on. So the Canada Pension Plan provides numerous benefits to workers who have contributed to the program while working in Canada. And unlike the other programs that we've discussed today, workers can apply for CPP benefits after they return to their home country, even if they are not going to be coming back to Canada and or no longer have a work permit. I'm not going to be talking about the full range of benefits that are available under Canada Pension Plan today. But I'm going to focus on CPP disability benefits and CPP retirement benefits, because those are two of the bigger parts of the program. And just to note before I move into the details of each of those, so when workers are working within Canada, they are making payments automatically. They should be deducted automatically from their paychecks towards the Canada Pension Plan. So I see Martin has a hand raised. Martin, did you want to pose a question at this point?
Yes, I just wanted to ask the question, how many years they need to be doing contribution to Canada Pension Plan in order to give the retirement plan?
I'm going to get to that. So good question. Yeah, so because there's a minimum contribution for for disability benefits, which I'll talk about, and then there's a different type of eligibility, contribution for the retirement benefits. So I'll start with the disability benefits, but I definitely will talk about that. So like I said, workers contribute automatically to the Canada Pension Plan if they're working in Canada. This is something that is deducted automatically from their pay and paid to the government by the employer. So Canada Pension Plan disability benefits are designed to provide some income to workers who have become disabled before they've reached the age of retirement. So in order to qualify for CPP disability benefits, the worker has to show that, first of all, they have to show that they have a disability that is both severe and prolonged, or that is likely to result in death. And each of those words, severe and prolonged, has a legal meaning, but for the purposes of today, you can just understand that it is, a severe disability, something that is really impairing in terms of that person's ability to work. And prolonged means that it is not temporary. It's a disability that is longer lasting. So, not something that's just a few months, but more in the order of years or lifelong. They also have to show that that disability regularly prevents them from pursuing any type of substantially gainful employment. So again, these are a lot of legal words, but what it means is that it has to regularly prevent them. So they might have a condition that allows them sometimes to work, but they can't regularly predict when they'll be able to work. And it also relates to any type of substantially gainful employment. So if a person has a disability that prevents them from doing their normal employment, but they would still be able to participate in other regular employment that's substantially gainful, then they would not qualify for this. And substantially gainful means that they are not able to work enough to make a living, basically. So I already talked about how this excludes temporary or short-term periods of disability. And getting to the question that Martin raised, so I know Martin was asking about retirement benefits, but for disability benefits, there is a required amount of contributions that have to have been made. So the worker has to show that they met something that's called the minimum qualifying period. So for most cases, this usually means that they've contributed to CPP, they've made a minimum contribution to CPP for 4 out of the 6 years prior to the onset of disability. So what this effectively means is that if a worker works in Canada, even for 10 or 20 years and makes regular contributions, for them to qualify for CPP disability, they would have to show that their disability, that the onset of that was within 2 years of their last 4 years of employment, or if they had more sporadic employment, that they had worked 4 out of the last 6 years. So unfortunately, this program excludes those who stop working and then, let's say, 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road, they become disabled. They would not qualify for these benefits. But it's really designed for people who would otherwise still be working, and then the disability hits them and they have to stop working. If a worker is successful in getting CPP disability benefits, they're entitled to receive a monthly payment until they reach the age of 65. At this time, the minimum monthly amount that they would receive under CPP disability is $510.85. Now, as I'm reading that out and looking at it, I'm realizing that that was the 2021 numbers, so it may now be slightly higher in 2022, but it would certainly not be less than that. Workers who are temporary foreign workers who have an indefinite, long-term, or terminal disability can apply for CPP disability benefits. In order to apply, there's a written application that's pretty, it's pretty long and detailed that has to be submitted to Service Canada. So for some workers, supports that they might need in order to fill that out would be, you know, just supports with understanding and completing the form, especially if the worker did not have English as a strong literacy skill. So part of the application is completed by the worker. There's also a medical portion to this application that must be completed by the worker's healthcare provider. And it's helpful to include medical reports or other paperwork that shows the worker's level of disability. So I would definitely recommend that workers seek legal assistance if they're not sure how to apply for these benefits, or if they apply for these benefits and then they're denied, because it is a bit of a complicated process to navigate. So CPP retirement benefits are benefits that many temporary foreign workers are eligible to receive. And they can apply for these benefits from their home country after they are finished working in Canada. There is, unlike the disability benefits where there's that time frame during which they must show they became disabled, for retirement benefits, even workers who haven't worked in Canada for many years would still be entitled to apply for CPP retirement benefits based on their contributions while they were here. Like I mentioned, the contributions are deducted from their paychecks. And workers can start to receive CPP retirement benefits as early as the age of 60 years old. So the standard age of eligibility for CPP retirement benefits is 65 years old, but workers can apply earlier, or they can apply any year from when they turn 60 up until they turn 70. Depending on whether they apply earlier or later, their monthly amount will be adjusted. So for those workers who apply early, they will start to get benefits earlier, but they will receive a smaller monthly amount. And for those who push it to a later date, they will start to receive it later, obviously, but they will get a higher monthly amount. In order to apply, workers have to submit an application package, and it can take several months for this to be processed. So a worker can apply in anticipation of their 60th or 65th birthday. For CPP retirement benefits, unlike the CPP sickness benefits, and this is getting back to Martin's question, there isn't a minimum number of years of contributions that have to be made. However, the amount that the worker receives is based on how much they contributed while they were working. And so even a worker who only contributed for 1 year, who may have only worked in Canada for 1 year or a few years, and may not have cumulatively contributed all that much to the plan, they are still eligible to apply and to get a retirement benefit based on what they put in. And that retirement benefit may be quite a modest amount if they only contributed for a few years, but it's still is income that they are entitled to. It's a pension that they've paid into and that they are eligible and entitled to receive. And like I said, something that they can do from the home country. I know logistically that can be challenging, but it's something that they can do. Martin, I see your hands raised again.
Yes, I just want to confirm. So they don't need any years of contribution. So that first year, if they work only 1 year, they are allowed to apply for Canada pension plan, because I know as a Canadian, if you live in Canada, you need to work for at least 10 years to be able to qualify for Canada pension plan.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, to get the minimum. So, but it makes sense for the migrant workers because they are not always gonna work for 10 years or more, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's different from my understanding, even for Canadians. So as I said, that's different from my understanding of how Canada Pension Plan retirement benefits work. I know that there are different criteria, for example, for old age security, that there is a minimum number of years of Canadian residency for that program. But I was not familiar with a minimum of 10 years contribution to CPP retirement. So that's something that I can certainly check, and if people are interested, I can send out a clarification, because I do apologize if I'm giving incorrect information. I'm happy to send out, you know, I can take some time after today to double check that.
Oh, thank you. And I always wonder about the migrant workers, and if you say that they can apply even with 1 year of contribution, that's fantastic, because it is a question that I always have with migrant workers, right?
Yeah, so like I said, I was not familiar with a 10-year minimum for anybody. So that's something that I'm going to have to check to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. And I guess maybe I will give everybody my email address at the end of today's presentation. I'm just thinking about the best way to set the record straight, because as I said, I really don't want to be disseminating incorrect information. But if anybody wants to hear from me once I've had chance to verify that, then I'm happy to email and email out the correct information. Connie,
No, thank you. That's my understanding, but I can be wrong too. So, but I really appreciate the information. Thank you.
So I see a few other hands raised, and I'm going to go because maybe we have within the group here people who can set the record straight. Connie, I saw that your hand was raised first.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Martin, for raising that question. I actually don't have an answer, because I also have a different understanding, and I think you know, your commitment, Stephanie, to look deeper into this and just, you know, make the clarification would be very, very helpful. My understanding that it's not necessarily 10 years of contribution, but 10 years of residency here in Canada. So for newcomers, before, you know, you qualify to receive a CPPs, you have this kind of required number of years of residency. So again, it's adding to,
yeah, that's something I'm not familiar with at all. And like, it is confusing because old age security has residency requirements, but you can receive CPP as a non-resident of Canada. So I see more hands being raised, so maybe we can get more information here. The two programs are often paid out at the same time, right? So I don't know if there's confusion around that. I can tell you with certainty that old age security has a minimum residency requirement. And my understanding is that there is no such residency requirement for CPP. And that's why, like, it's quite clear that a worker who returns to their home country is not eligible for old age security, but they would be eligible for CPP retirement benefits. So I think Lisbeth had her hand raised next, so we'll go to her and see if she can add to this conversation. It's great to discuss this and clarify anything. And I wish that I could just in the background double check this here, but Lisbeth, did you have input on this?
No, I didn't. I actually just had a question in regards to applying from home country.
Mhm.
So I know this might be a little bit tough depending on each country, but like say somebody is interested in doing this, but they live elsewhere, how would they go about this?
Yeah, great question. And I do have a slide coming up where I'll talk
Okay.
about that a little bit
Okay,
more.
perfect.
So I do have a couple more short slides about CPP, the various CPP benefits that I will get to. So maybe
And another question. I had another question as well. If let's say there's a migrant worker who maybe didn't want to like get this taken off their pay, is that an option as well?
No, it's
No,
not
it's not.
optional.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. Great question. But it's mandatory for all employees in Canada.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yeah.
and actually, an employer pay 4.5% and they deduct another 4.5% from the employee. When you are self-employed, you pay the full 9%.
Right. Yes, thank you. I don't know who's speaking, but yes, thank you. That's correct.
Stephanie, no, you're right about CPP. I think there's a confusion with OAS and CPP. It says it right here. It says you qualify in the Canada Pension Plan, be at least 60 and have made one valid contribution. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's it,
thank
yeah.
you. I'm happy to have that. I'm actually really happy to have that clarified within the webinar because I know that Francie would like to be able to post this webinar. So I'm happy to do it that way so that the answer is here for anybody that's watching this in the future. So that was my understanding as well, is that for CPP retirement, there's no minimum contribution, or I'm quite sure there's no residency requirement either.
Just
If
one
you
valid
contribute,
contribution. That's it.
if you've contributed, then you get a percentage back. If you've only contributed a very small amount, you'll hardly get anything back, but you're still entitled to that pension that you paid into. Yeah, so, and my perspective is if you've had those contributions deducted from your pay, you should, even if it's going to be a modest amount, it's worth applying for it when you reach that retirement age because you paid into it and you're entitled to that. So thank you for clarifying that. And I am happy actually to be able to have the answer to that question within this webinar that's being recorded so that, like I said, for future viewers, they can have the correct answer. It's a great conversation. So I'm happy that it was raised because there are a lot of misunderstandings. And like I said, I think that for those of us who are resident in Canada, it can be quite confusing because old age security and CPP retirement they come together, and actually the amounts can affect one another. And there are different eligibility criteria for those two programs, but for many people who are resident in Canada, they'll qualify for both. Or they might, if they're a newcomer to Canada, they may be working on confirming their eligibility for old age security and not realizing that that's actually not a requirement for CPP retirement benefits. So I see that Lisbeth and Roland both have hands raised. I'm wondering if I can just move to the end of this section and then come back for questions about the various CPP benefits more broadly. And I think I will do that just in case I answer a question as I go through. So I do want to very briefly mention that CPP does have other benefits that may also be available for temporary foreign workers and their families. even after they return to their home country. And those include the death benefit, the survivor's pension, a children's benefit, and there are some other benefits that are available through that program. So those are all things that temporary foreign workers should, gain some information about, because they or their families may be eligible for them as well. So I think it was Lisbeth's question about receiving CPP funds after the worker returns to their home country. So the Government of Canada does have a foreign direct deposit system set up in order for the funds from various CPP programs to be deposited directly into international accounts, so non-Canadian bank accounts. So there is, the Government of Canada has a website dedicated to this foreign direct deposit enrollment form. There are a few countries in the world that may not have this set up, but it is set up for most parts of the world. And for each country, there is slightly different information that's required to set up those benefits. So if you go to, like, if you even just do a search for foreign direct deposit and CPP, you'll land on a government website that will walk that worker through the specifics for their own home country and exactly what they need at that point. And so finally, I'm going to take questions really soon, but I do want to refer everybody to the federal government's kind of landing page for updated COVID-19 information. So I posted the website there. And that is the website where Canada has their COVID-19 statistics, but they also have links to the various programs that have been affected by or have been necessitated by the COVID-19 pandemic. And I will do just a little plug as well for community legal clinics in Ontario. Both Francie and I work out of community legal clinics. So this is a system of nonprofits, nonprofit legal organizations across Ontario. We provide legal advice, information, and representation in various areas of law not covered by Legal Aid Ontario, so not criminal or family, but other types of law such as social assistance, employment, government pensions, human rights, and housing. To qualify for information and advice, you have to either fall within our geographical catchment area for my clinic and Francie's, or for certain specialty clinics just to be eligible as their target population. And for most legal clinics to represent a client, they have to show that their case has legal merit and that they meet income eligibility. So sorry about that. And this is the logo for my legal clinic here in Owen Sound. I'm a staff lawyer here, and we are so happy to have been involved as a supporting organization with the Kairos project and with Care for International Workers out of Windsor. So we're so happy to have been invited to participate today. So on that note, I know that there were some hands up that I had asked to kind of, wait till the end. So let's take some time to talk. So please feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions. So Martin, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. I just want to clarify, yes, that's old age security that you need to live at least 10 years in Canada to be eligible. Yep. And that's your income will affect that too. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. And most people, most temporary foreign workers won't qualify for old age security, unfortunately. Yeah. So Roland, you had a question?
Well, just information about the CPP that you discussed there. So like if you look at the CPP, you can contribute to CPP from 18 years old to 65, which is 47 years. So CPP require you to contribute at least 83% of that 47 years, which is 39 years to get the maximum.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we have to be, in order to get the maximum, we have to be contributing the maximum amount. So this year, the maximum pensionable earning is like about 60,000. So, and if you look at the minimum payment or the average payment of CPP, it's only like 640 per month. So it's really a small part of the contribution. And also for OAS, it's not only the 10 years that is qualified. You have to be 65 in order to do it. So that's the reason why most of the TFW will not be receiving it, because they will not be here until they are 65. At that time, probably they are, they are PR. So, but essentially they could apply it by changing their status.
Are you referring to old age security or CPP?
Oh, the old age security is, as far as 10 years, there's still, you have to apply before you become 65. So those are two separate programs that we have.
Yes. Yeah, I think we're pretty clear on that.
Yeah.
Those are two different programs, and
Yeah.
most temporary foreign workers are not going to be eligible for old age security because there are residency requirements attached to it. CPP, you're right that there is, to get the full CPP amount, there is, like I have been explaining, so there is CPP retirement is, what you get out of it is based on what you put into it.
That's right.
So if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
make
yeah.
maximum contributions for
Mhm.
many years as a full-time, well-paid person in Canada, you will likely get the maximum CPP retirement amount. But most temporary foreign workers will not be qualifying for the maximum CPP retirement amount, but it still is money that they have contributed and that they're entitled to. So even if
That's
a
right.
worker has only been working in Canada for 6 years or 8 years, I agree with you that their pension upon reaching retirement age would be quite modest. However, that is money that they're entitled to, right? And the global reality is that councome that might be modest in Canada may stretch a little further in the worker's home
That's right,
country
yeah.
as well, right? So,
Yeah.
and I just think it's important that workers understand that this is money they've contributed and that they are entitled to receive some
Yeah.
kind of
course. Yeah.
some kind of payout when they return to their
Yeah.
home country. We're certainly not getting rich on CPP retirement
Mhm.
benefits,
Yeah.
but it's better than nothing, right?
So another information that I can share is when I filed for all his pension for my mother, we look at the residence requirements. So I just put into my mind. So the residence requirement, depending on the country that you are from, if you contribute to the system there, they can count the portion of years that missing on your residency. So like my mother, she's only here for like 9 years or 8 years. So I asked the Service Canada, and they said, look at the country where she's from, and then see if you can use the years that she stayed in Canada, in outside Canada, and that one can be used for residency. So that might be an interest for TFW if they really want to apply for OAS, because residency is you can use the residency that you have from other country. But there's only a couple of countries, I think, that has a bilateral agreement with Canada to take that. But the contribution, the payment that you have will not increase. It's just the eligibility for residency. So whatever you're right, whatever you contribute to it, that's how much portion of it, that's how much you will get. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But if you're not resident in Canada at retirement age, you would not qualify for old age security, generally speaking.
Yeah, that's right. But if you're lacking, what I'm saying, if you're in here for 8 years and you turn 65, instead of waiting until you become 67, you can apply as long as you can get some years from your from the place that you stayed and contribute to the system there, to the social pension.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I can send you the link to that too, so that so you can use that too. So
yeah, thank you. Well, thank you, Roland, for that input as well. Does anyone else have any questions or comments at this point?
Hello, Stephanie. The question that Lisbeth asked before, migrant workers that are in their own country, how they can apply. Let's say a migrant worker is in Mexico or Guatemala or Honduras, how they can apply while they are in those countries for CPP.
Yeah, so the application is a standard application, so you can apply through the Government of Canada website, and then in terms of payment, you would go to the Government of Canada's Foreign Direct Deposit webpage to navigate how to get those funds deposited into an international bank account, because on the standard application, it's designed for people who are residing within Canada. So they would have to do that extra step to ensure that the payments go to their foreign bank account. So Fanny, I see that your hand is raised.
Yes, we have done many also Canada pension plan for migrant workers.
Mhm.
So they can apply they have to go to their own, let's say in Mexico, they can go to their secretariat office, Secretaría de Trabajo, work, wherever they get the work permit, whichever state they get the work permit, they can go to that state and apply for a CPP. For the Caribbean workers, they usually, the liaison office will process their applications to apply for CPP. For Caribbean workers and for Mexican workers, their own, wherever they go to apply for the work permit, they do it. Last year, we had a worker that called the Mexican consulate. He came over here with the application. We sent it to the Mexican consulate, and the worker got the CPP 2 months after.
That's great information to know that there are those supports as well. It is something that someone can do independently as well, but it's good to know that there are that those are like assistant, right? Because the application can be challenging to navigate. So I'm not sure, Roland, whether your hand was raised because you had another question or whether it had just not been lowered from earlier.
No, I lowered it.
Okay.
Anyway, I just posted there the agreement between the Canada and the Philippines. So if somebody is interested about that, it was established in March 1, 1997. That allows you to allows you to get the years to apply for Canada's benefits. So
great. Sorry,
yeah.
You can all see that I'm looking at that on my screen. I just realized. Great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And Martin, I see that you've got your hand raised.
Yes, so on the last comment, that raised me another question. I know Secretaría del Trabajo is the Minister of Labor, and that's the workers who come into the SWAP program, but there is the workers who come in on the 2-year program that they are not coming to the Minister of Labor. So I would think that it's harder for them, or they need to do independent the application because they are not getting the permit through the Minister of Labor. That is through a private companies that are coming, and it's many countries in the same sense.
Yeah, well, and I know that it's that doing this kind of application internationally can be a challenge logistically, right? That really can be a challenge. The eligibility in terms of, going to the Canadian website and completing the application, that's like a standard eligibility. So it's really working out those individual logistical challenges that the worker faces within their own circumstances within their own home country, right? And I certainly recognize that for many workers, having supports, especially where there is a language barrier, is going to make a big difference as to whether or not they're able to access those benefits. So I'm not sure whether we have any other questions at this point. I don't see any more hands, and I see Francie's popping up here again. So hi,
Yes,
Francie.
I'm sharing in the chat the Mexico-Canada agreement and the application for the Canada Old Age Retirement and Survivor Benefits. So the link is there, so you can have that information. Connie has a question.
I was multitasking, so anyway, I just want to say thank you so much, and I'm wondering if we can make this presentation more accessible to the workers themselves. Just because right now,
It's already,
we are all
already in Facebook Live.
okay, and the other thing is, translating this to Spanish, like the presentation deck that you have, Stephanie, in Spanish, so that it can be more accessible and friendly to Spanish speaking workers.
Yeah, so now it's in the Facebook Live. It's going to be there for the English speaking migrant workers, but we are going to put the captions and subtitles in Spanish to be available for everyone, for the others. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Stephanie, for your knowledge, for sharing your knowledge, your experience. Information is amazing. Thank you for clarification of many questions that we have. It was an amazing presentation. It will be available. The slides are available, were approved by Kairos before. So you have access for the slides also. And yeah, and thank you so much, everybody, for being here in this session. So thank you and have a good day. Bye.
Thank you, Stephanie. Great
Everybody.
presentation. Thank you.
I appreciate
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, everyone.
Nancy.
Bye-bye.
appreciate your attention and your questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.